How about that, Gaz? Look at that. I thought you were getting out of it. Julie said she didn't want to be on the end, so.
And in fact, I would suggest you just keep filming with that GoPro. Let's just film all these folks while we're talking.
All right, I'll do that.
Bachelor number 1. Excuse me. Now you're going to hear me cough. You're going to hear me cough a few times. I apologize. I've got a sinus infection. I blame WWDC.
He seated me next to him. Is it contagious?
No, it's not contagious.
I don't know how to respond to that.
So my name is Tim Robertson. I host a show called Tech Fan. I used to host the My Mac podcast, and that show started in 2004. My original co-host is Chad Perry in the audience. Say hi, Chad. And then we have these two guys over here that do it.
We've tried to kill it off.
That's right. So currently I'm also hosting a show called OWC Radio. Full-time I work for Other World Computing. And I hope that everyone in here has signed up for the Thunderbolt 2 dock on the iPad. Before the last speaker, I'm actually going to draw the winner from the iPad. I'm going to use a random number website compared to how many people entered. Whatever number that is, you're here. You have to pick up your prize here. If you go home and you're the winner, I'm going to give it to someone else, probably Gaz, for flying all this way from the UK. He's already got one. So let's start with Dave, since he's got the mic. Before we turn it over to all of you, since we have a bunch of podcasters, I'd like to ask Dave, you're number 1, since you're holding the mic. How did you get into podcasting and why?
Oh, that's a good question. So it was early 2005. I was out to dinner with, I forget what the trade show was. I did not attend the trade show. I went into New York. We were living in Connecticut, and I went to this dinner, and it was Robert Scoble was there, and Mike Dunn was there. And Mike, for those of you who don't know him, he was in acquisitions at Hearst Media for a while, but he's just sort of a media guy and an instigator is really what he is. And I drove him home, and on the way home, he was like, dude, you should start a podcast. Because, you know, he knew I knew about audio. And so that planted the bug, and then I was moving up to New Hampshire at the time and had some drives back and forth. And so I was listening to podcasts, and then I thought, I had moved away from Connecticut before, and when I did, John Braun and I, sort of, I mean, we didn't lose touch, but we just didn't speak as frequently because we didn't see each other as often. I thought, I'm doing this again, and when we were in Connecticut, we were getting together every week, and I thought, what if we just move our weekly get-togethers to a podcast so that we can just keep in touch? And that really was it. I mean, that was the beginning of it. We had no idea what we were going to talk about, and if you listen to the first few episodes, the Q&A thing was a mistake. I mean, it was, you know, it was fake, actually. Yeah.
The first few, you have a zero audience then that first episode.
Well, but it was episode number 3, so we did whatever we did for episode number 1 and then 2, and I didn't know what to do for number 3. So I said, well, let's phony up a mailbag, and it wasn't entirely phony. I was getting questions from people.
You know, it's funny you say that you didn't know what you were doing, and you didn't even know probably what the show was going to be about when you started.
Well, we thought we did.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I own a thing called the Stoplight Network, and I try to help people who want to get into podcasting, but it's kind of scary for them. So anybody out there that wants to become a podcaster, talk to me. And I tell new podcasters, just start recording, because your first 10 shows are just going to suck, and you don't even know what your show is going to be until you get to your 20th episode. That's when you kind of discover, oh, this is what the show is. I don't know what I was doing before, but this is the show now. How about you, Allison? Oh, the pretty one, not the ugly one.
No, I was just going to say, Dave, with that story, you just got caught.
Yeah.
Well, I originally said I was going to read articles from the Wall Street Journal. That's what I was going to do, the tech section of the Wall Street Journal. I did it because I realized that everywhere I went, I was grabbing people in the grocery store and saying, hey, did you see this new gadget? There's this cool piece of software. And then I thought, maybe I should just talk to people who wanted to hear that instead of... Now, I still do that in the grocery store. Do you see my Apple Watch? It's really awesome.
And it gets rid of the whole harassment thing.
Yeah, there's that, the problems with that. The hard part was getting the courage to start. And my brother Kelly had just recently passed away, and he would do these things. It's like, what would make you think you could do that? I mean, he built a solar-powered house in Hawaii with his bare hands. It's like, what would make you think you could do that? And I knew if he'd be standing there, he'd just go, just do it, you idiot, and do it. And sorry, Chuck. Really. Sorry. But so I went ahead and started, and you're absolutely right. You got to just push go eventually. Having some kind of plan. But I'm not one of those people who has, like, 6 in the can kind of thing. Nah.
Chuck is next. He is the master of content. I don't know anybody who produces more content than this man. Here's a little known fact. Most people don't know this. Unfortunately, Leo Laporte about 4 years ago passed away. And ever since... ever since, Chuck has been using a Leo hand puppet.
Somebody's going to take just that soundbite. Leo Laporte passed away, and an audience erupts in laughter, and that's it. That's it. Out of context, this is awesome.
So Chuck, you started in audio, but you quickly went into video, and I remember many of Macworld Expos. There's Chuck and his camera crew going booth to booth to booth, getting all the content. How did you get started?
Well, I got started doing audio actually before podcasting. I was doing audio content for the web. For
Choke
the user
up on the
group
mic
community.
a little bit, so they can hear you.
Want that? Okay.
Yeah.
For the user group community, and that's where I found out that there's so many great people in this community, so many interesting stories to tell, and they weren't being told. In the user group community, the user groups were great about promoting things maybe within their own town or city, but they weren't going beyond that. And I was trying to do that. And then it just kind of grew from there and moved out into the larger Mac community. And then podcasting came along, gave me a whole new opportunity to deliver things, and went from there. The move over to video just seemed like a completely logical thing because I want to tell the same stories, but now I want to get the faces along with the voices so people could see who the developers are, who are developing all these cool tools and all this great stuff.
The rock stars of this industry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're the ones, I mean, we're the reporters. They're the ones that,
Totally
OWC
agree.
is a great example. I could go down the list and you all know them that just do an amazing job. I think it's important to realize that, we all look at products and you say, well, that's not for me, and you blow them off real quickly, and you forget that that's somebody's heart and soul. And so if I can give that heart and soul a chance to get on, be heard, maybe be seen, I've done my job.
Thank you.
You haven't plugged the name of your own show,
I haven't plugged the name of my own show, Mac Voices. Mac Voices. Yes, thank you.
Next is David. I don't know David, but I want to.
Oh my gosh.
Hi, David.
How you doing? I'm not a podcaster though, that's the thing.
Get off the stage.
Like
this?
I'm very tense here. I'm getting nervous. Well, I appreciate Mike giving me the opportunity to be here. Mike and I met each other about, it's been 2 months now? A month ago, maybe? Something like that. We sat down, had some lunch, and I've been president of the Mac user group, local, I gotta call it Apple user group now, no more Mac. For about 3 years. I know. I'm a Mac guy. Okay, well, you don't have an iPhone. So I've been heavily involved with that for many years. I got a couple of the folks here from our group as well. Worked in the IT industry for over 20 years. I do IT support for commercial property insurance. So
awesome.
I do this dirty word called Windows. Don't hold it against me, but
if the tool works, that's really all that matters, right? I know most people here are Mac users. By the way, it is Mac.
I am a Mac user.
No longer Macintosh. Guy Searle. It's not Macintosh anymore.
Mac.
Apple officially did retire that name. They do not refer to it as Macintosh. It's just Mac. But it'll always be Macintosh to me.
But perfect timing because I am next week traveling out to our office in Rhode Island and going to support our Mac users. I have 7 people that I support from here.
Awesome.
And I am the Mac guru for the company, which is it's a company of about 5,000 employees. So
that's amazing.
So I do that as well, and I'm very passionate about Macs. I really like them, and we do have a great job doing things with our users. In our user group, I head up an iPhone special interest group. We do it once every month.
Sounds to me like you're ready to start a podcast.
I was this close. I've been tempted.
Well, you're sitting in front of all these people talking very comfortably.
Yeah, I am.
Just start.
I'm gonna have to start. You guys really
grab a microphone. It's very
come on
inexpensive.
Some of your shows, let me at least give me some opportunity to get good at it, because sometimes.
What are you doing Tuesday?
I'm in Rhode Island, so I might be able to do it at nights, but that's you record any day. Well,
Chuck's the guy that can get you on Twit, you know.
I would be happy to tell my story and talk about anything that relates to technology. I'm very passionate about it, and not only is it my career, it's my hobby too. It's unusual. And I could talk about Dave. I'm sorry, I have a brain cramp here. I can relate to exactly what you did with that presentation with tech support. I mean, it's really hard to find people that have a personality and are good with customer skills. I mean, and I've excelled in my position 15 years with my company because I'm very good at what I do with these folks, and that's what's hard to teach everybody here is that stuff, you know.
Mike,
I really appreciate your part. Tech is nothing. I don't care about the tech. I mean, and I've interviewed a lot of the people that have worked in my position and because we have people all over the country that are local to the office. So, and I watch these people, man, oh my God, this guy is nuts. But we still kept them anyway. I'd say they're really desperate. But I really appreciated Dave. That was a great presentation about that too. So, but yeah, I think you guys kind of inspired me. I might kind of
awesome. You should
dive
definitely
into
do
it
that.
and give it a shot anyway. But
the next person, Mike Potter. Everyone here knows Mike. He is the originator. And I should have publicly apologized for stealing Gaz away.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I'm talking to Dave about coming onto my podcast, and he's already being poached.
But you're local. I can come up here. So.
You can come up anytime.
No such thing as not being local on a podcast.
Well, that's not fair to say that the Gaz was stolen, because, to be honest, it is truly all about the community, as I said before. And he still very much is a big part of my podcast, and it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be what it is now if he had never sent me that email that I shared with you guys earlier.
So what made you sit down for that first time to hit record, actually record it and put it out on the internet for everyone to listen to?
Yeah, so I actually shared this story with you.
I know.
For Mac Guys Only was not my first podcast. My first podcast was it was a fiction and literature podcast, and I did that. It was called Coffee House to Go, and I actually published 49 episodes of that, and then there's a 50th in the can waiting to be published.
There's like 3 people going, where is it?
9 years later. So I did that in 2005, and as I was moving on, I started to get more and more questions about Macs. I love Macs, and I was answering these questions, and I thought, you know, kind of like we talked about earlier, I sure would be great if I could share these answers with more people. I'm doing this other podcast. Why don't I do a Mac podcast? And I literally, still to this day, I have the drawing that I made on our coffee table of this logo.
Really?
I was sitting there sketching it out. I was like, okay, so for Mac Guys Only. Okay, so what if he had like sunglasses and he's like tipping it down? And I literally sketched out this, and I sketched out the entire idea for the podcast before I pressed record. So it was kind of the opposite of this. And I planned out the first couple episodes, and I used real emails, but I faked them up a little bit too, because you have to have content.
You have to have content.
Record, right? So that was fall of 2006, and it really didn't take long, and I'm sure all these folks can attest to it too, before the rest of the audience glommed onto it, and you know, folks like Gary, you know, start writing me and say, hey, you know, tell me about this, or I want to share this with you, and it just grew from there.
Awesome. Now, the next person, I know a little bit about this guy. I've been, I was a podcast partner with him for a long time. His name is Guy Searle. Little known fact, a lot of people don't know about this, and I know you don't like to publicize this guy.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it quiet, but go ahead.
He was actually the body double for Sylvester Stallone in a movie. Rhinestone, he was with Dolly Parton, he was in the love-making scenes. That's actually Guy. I know you don't like to brag. It's exceptional work.
What people don't know is they needed 2 people to substitute for Dolly Parton.
So how did you get into podcasting, Guy?
Careful. I actually got started in podcasting really because of you. You had started the My Mac podcast, and I had this was 2004, 2005. I just started listening to not only the MyMac podcast, but a few of the other ones that were out there. And it was like, I really want to do something with this. And Apple had just come out with 10.4, I think, and there was a little thing in 10.4 called Dashboard. And I thought, well, what if I just do a segment and I'll review dashboard widgets? So that's what I started doing. Yeah, boy, it's worked out so well. So I started doing reviews on dashboard widgets, and I must have been driving Tim crazy because my audio sounded different every single week. Even to this day, as Gaz and I have been doing this show for almost 6 years, it's like almost at least once a month. It's like, okay, I had to change the complete setup, and you can just hear Gaz on the other side going. So I started doing the dashboard widget, and actually, the MyMac podcast at one point had like 5 or 6 different little segments that people were contributing, and Tim broke that off to be its own podcast for like 15 episodes or something like that. And as we were coming up on the 100th show, Tim had somehow arranged to do a live podcast from the Grand Rapids, Michigan Apple Store. And he and Chad were going to go, and there was some kind of family thing where Chad couldn't go. And I live in Northern Virginia. And when Tim told me that Chad couldn't be there, it's like, oh, I'll just fly from... No, I drove. Actually, I drove. I drove from Washington, D.C. all the way to, first Battle Creek.
Yep.
And then we drove to Grand Rapids, Michigan together. And there is actually, if you go back and listen to that show, it's painfully obvious how very, very sick I was. And I'm not talking about mentally, okay? I was physically very, very ill when I got up.
I was driving like this a lot.
It was I bring a squeegee for the window when he sneezes. So right after that happened, okay. Thank you. Yeah, no. Yeah, and if you don't listen to the mymac.com podcast, this is kind of how it goes. So, content free. Right after that, I started being kind of a co-host for the MyMac podcast, and I got more and more and more kind of involved in the show as it went on. And then Tim left, and David Cohen and I were co-hosting the show together, and then David had to leave.
And we'll stop there simply because that's somebody else's story to tell.
That's true. That's somebody else's story. But anyway, I have been involved in podcasting since about 2005, and the tools to create podcasts are relatively cheap. You don't need a big, powerful Mac to do it. And it can be a lot of fun. And it doesn't have to be about Macs. It doesn't have to be about technology. It could be about crochet. It could be about, running if you're a jogger. It could be about anything you want it to be. There is an audience out there for just about anything you can think of that will meet Apple's standards of quality
It doesn't matter. And that's the thing about podcasting. There's no oversight. There's no government agency that says, you can't say that. If you want to make a podcast that's wall-to-wall explicit, you can do that.
And there are people that do.
Yeah.
Or so I've heard.
And the other thing is, if you have an idea for a show and you're like, wow, but Mike's doing for Mac Guys Only, and Dave's kind of doing this over here, and Allison does that. My show's kind of in like those, so they're already doing it, so I shouldn't do it. They would be the first ones to say, no, do it. Make another Mac show. No more competition.
That's right.
There's a world out there that's dying for content, and in the history of humankind, there's never been an opportunity for the average person, for the low cost, to get into worldwide broadcasting. This has never happened before, and it's up to people like you and us to take advantage of this, because I think long term it's a better world when we all kind of have a voice. Not everyone should have one, but we can.
Oh yeah, boy. Did you guys see the Rolls Royce that was out there?
Yeah.
Julie, I flew that in, and I'm going to leave it when I'm done.
Julie.
Actually, can you do gas?
We could do gas. Bachelor number 8.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Is there a question out there?
The question is, how did you get into podcasting?
Okay, you know, Dave always says, don't get caught. I got caught. And the person actually who I got caught by wasn't quite Mike, although this guy had an influence on Mike as well. And that was actually Adam Christensen. He was the first podcaster that I listened to on a regular basis and went back and back and back to that podcast. And in 2007, he started having some listener invites, which didn't work out for his show in the end. But I was actually on that show. I called in and I was talking about why should Apple not, because this was before Intel, why should Apple not actually put their software out on Windows so Windows users could actually more cheaply understand what they could be getting into? Because I couldn't afford some of these high-end Macs, and I did what we spoke about earlier, eventually, which was to buy a second-hand. Now, stolen. No, that was later. That was later. But then, so then later on, I started listening to more and more Mac podcasts, and I heard Mike's, and we spoke about the story earlier, where basically I got into it by entering the competition, and then it just went from there. I can't remember how many years I was doing your show, Mike, and then I don't know how you heard my voice, Tim, but he asked if I'd like to go on to their show, and I went on the show, and then Tim and David stopped, and Guy took over, and I joined Guy, and it's been a wonderful relationship ever since. I know you do. I am, yeah. Very much so, Alison, yes, very much so.
And if you notice something, Alison, between Mike and Guy, we think we know what's the virus is causing.
Yeah.
And people wonder why I left the MyMac podcast.
Yeah, so if you have me on your podcast, you will go bald.
This happened after Gary joined my show.
Okay, I think.
Julie.
Are we getting away from the hair thing?
Yes.
Yeah, podcasting. Podcasting's changed my life. It truly has. I first got into podcasting about the same time as a lot of us here, about 2005, basically when the first Intel Macs came out. And I was actually working at a university at the time, doing work in training. And somebody showed me the last person on earth I would ever have at the time thought would own a video iPod, a theoretical civil engineer. I mean, they live in a different plane of existence. But he had a video iPod, and he was talking about how he used it in his work when he traveled to Hungary. And at that time, iPods were for like teenagers and just music, and that was it. And the minute I saw it, it suddenly grasped what could be done with it. And working at a university, the college bookstore had, Apple MacBooks there. And so I started playing with them a little bit and discovered GarageBand. And that was the killer app. I bought a MacBook, a black MacBook. I still miss that thing. And within 90 minutes of getting that thing home on the kitchen table, I had my first podcast out on the internet. Yeah. I got introduced to Mac, GarageBand, and the podcasting process all in 90 minutes. Yay, Apple.
Yay, Apple!
So I have been doing podcasts ever since on a variety of topics, everything from Cub Scouts to Macs to motorcycles to sci-fi right now. It's been a ride. But the community, and this goes back to community, the people I have been introduced to through podcasting have literally changed my life. They've changed my career, they've changed my hobbies, they changed what I call a vacation. They changed everything I do. I mean, I'm trying hard not to get emotional here, but podcasting really, it really can introduce you to a whole new world. I mean, I went to England and drank beer with Gaz in England. I mean, and a few other of you here too, I think were at that as well. But why would I ever go to England if it hadn't been for podcasting? So it's just amazing. It is. But
it's not like it was Afghanistan.
That's a good reason.
So we also want to invite any questions you guys might have for this panel, we have a microphone out there in the audience. So just raise your hand so he could see you. Please ask the questions of the podcasters. Anything. Look at that. I must have asked the perfect question because nobody has a question now.
Well, I want to add one thing too. Somebody talked about how easy it is to get started in podcasting. I will tell you it's a zero-sum investment because literally I have been podcasting from I'm a nomad, remember? Been podcasting from my MacBook and a $30 Logitech headset because I actually have expensive microphones and everybody tells me my headset sounds better. You know, for 9 years now. So you need nothing to get started.
Absolutely. I'm using the same microphone and mixer that I used in 2007 when I bought it from Small Dog Electronics, and I'm still using the same microphone and mobile pre-USB. If it's not broke, why fix it?
I just wanted to double up on what Julie said about it changing my life. I mean, all of these people are my friends, new friends. Got new friends in the audience, people like Lewis I had never met before, but I ended up in England drinking with Don too, and I ended up drinking in Wales with Gaz. I ended up in Belgium. I ended up in one of my best friends lives in Ireland. I've only met him once. I've known him for I don't know how long he's been on the show, 8-9 years, something like that. He's been on my podcast. So it absolutely did change my life in ways that I just never would have thought. I mean, I ended up in India because of it. I did, India. We was with Wally and Wendy and Don and his wife and some other people. So it is really crazy. It opens up your world in a way you could never expect.
And you know, the flip side of that,
yes.
the flip side of that is because we are friends on Facebook, I'm friends with you and Steve, I get to experience India through your adventures on Facebook. I see your posts, I see the pictures.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Super fun though.
Without the discipline.
Try to explain this to my mom.
It's a radio station, but it's just online.
Yeah,
wait.
all these people, where are you going now? I'm going to Macstock. What is Macstock?
So we got a question down here?
We do have a question from my friend that I met here from Texas who now lives in North Dakota.
Represent.
Question for Mr. Joyner.
Yes, sir.
I know you pretty much interviewed everybody on the planet. Do you have a favorite person or favorite interview that you've done? I know you've done, you did the Wayans brothers.
Oh, gee, thank you. No pressure at all here. No, really, I have to say my favorite is all of them. Because
and Tim Robertson.
First of all, if an interview really crashes and burns, I won't put it out because that's not respecting the audience. And so, if I don't like it, if I'm not interested, frankly, that's when I don't call. Oh.
He never even invited me on his show. Let the record.
You've been on this show. You've been on this show. No.
I thought he was going to say Leo puppet.
Yeah. No, I think the point is, again, it's people. It's great people, and if they have something to say, that's how they get on the show.
How many of you guys on the panel actually interview guests on your podcast? Isn't it the greatest thing to meet new people? One of the things I do on OWC Radio is I interview all kinds of people, not just famous people, but people nobody else has ever heard of, and bring those stories to people. It's so amazing.
I want to do a shout out to somebody in the audience here. Dr. Robert Carter. Wave your arm there, Robert. He's a professor in Texas, University of something, Texas. He's blind, and he does a show called the Tech Doctor Podcast. And I've had him on my show, and he's part of what has turned another big thing in my life is that I talk about accessibility a lot because blind friends like Robert have taught me stuff, and then I talk about it, and then more blind friends write to me, and all of a sudden I know all this really cool stuff about the amazing assistive technologies built into the Apple product. So you should say hi to Robert because he's probably not going to walk up to you.
Hi, Robert. Now, this is the very first Macstock. Hopefully the first of many, many, many more. So please, a round of applause for all these podcasters who came to the very first Look, there's not 10,000 people here. So thank you, panel, for coming to Macstock and entertaining us.
I know I said this earlier, but I'll be honest, I did this backwards. First, I reached out to all of these folks right here, and I said, do you want to do this? And they said, absolutely. And I said, great. Now we can have a conference. And if these folks hadn't said yes to that question, we wouldn't be sitting here today. So thank all of them for being here, because without them, we wouldn't have Macstock. And they've all been invited for next year. They don't know it yet, but they've been invited for next year.
We were talking at lunch about how we're going to be those guys going, oh, you didn't come to Macstock till number 3? So this year, we're still wearing it.
We get all shirts that say veteran.
There you go.
It'll be a loss of geek cred.
All right, so now we're going to set up for Dave's talk, right? Dave's up next, and he's going to talk to us about the Apple Watch.